Hello, everyone, and welcome to Medicamentum Authentica. Hi, this is Dr. Kaufman. I have a very special guest today. A rarely, as it happens, another physician is with me who has the fortitude and wisdom to speak out about this issue. And I'm speaking of the one and only Dr. Carrie Madej, who's here. Welcome. You've done some specialized research looking at the proposed technology for this COVID-19 vaccine, right?
Did you want me to get into the meetings that I attended?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One was a business meeting. It was a Metro Atlanta business meeting with business owners, and I was new to the organization. Anyhow, the meeting goes something like this. They're up there on their podium saying that this is a meeting because we need to talk about the future of Atlanta. We're trying to grow Atlanta, but we're having trouble bringing new corporations in from other countries because Atlanta has some negative things about it. One of them is the education system is not on par with the rest of the US. That's correct. Another one is Atlanta has a problem with racism. That's correct. The third one, Atlanta has a problem with new cultures, different ideas, because they just have not been introduced to that before, and that's correct. So how do we get, those are the concerns of companies from other countries. So how do we correct that quickly? Well, they have an idea. So they brought up the smartphones with the health app on them. They said the best way to describe what can happen or how we can make this work is give you an example, and this is the example they gave to us. So the example that they gave, they were doing a conversation between two women, Susie and Brenda, and Susie was in the middle of Atlanta and she gets a phone call from Brenda, and Brenda said, Susie, where are you? You're supposed to meet me at the restaurant at 5 o'clock. And Susie said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm running late at the gym. As soon as she said that, the phone lights up and beeps and tells her she's lying, because the phone knows she's lying because of these characteristics from her body. The body has the ability to link up to her biosensors. So it knows she's lying from the GPS, of course. Also knows she's lying because the polygraph test from the electrodermal analysis is so good, it's on par with the police station, and it knows she's lying. The third one is the voice inflection app. They said this is perfect, that it knows that your voice when you're lying. Also, the blood alcohol content would be automatically measured in her, and she was above the legal limit because they have the biosensors can mark that. It knows that she's at the bar instead of the gym, so she was lying from the GPS. It knows how many steps she's taken, her heart rate, her blood pressure, all these other things as well. So it would know that in a millisecond, and it would give her feedback that she's lying in more than one way. They never told us all the ways the feedback would come back at her. They also brought up that there would be an accumulation of points from how many times you lied, so there would be repercussions, kind of like a social credit system. This is, and I swear to you, the meeting that I attended that they talked to with all of us present.
So
and
we're basically talking about a surveillance and manipulation technology.
So people clapped, there's a standing ovation. That means a lot of people were for this technology, which very much scared me. I did not clap, I did not stand, I was in shock. They did talk about where was this data going. They did say into the cloud. They did say there was a problem with privacy, that they haven't really figured out who was getting it and where it was going.
Even if no one gets it, I mean, they know if your privileges in society are based upon this, everybody will know, right?
Obviously, right? And they felt like they would have pilot cities. Atlanta would be a pilot city, and to test this out, and they felt they could modify the behavior of a population within the month easily. And this was horrifying to me to know that they planned on doing this. And their own words saying this will happen, not maybe, it will happen.
Right. So Carrie, what year was this?
This was 2015. Okay,
so we're talking about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're familiar, maybe you talked about this, but Microsoft has an international patent, which so-called has the number 060606, and it describes a technology that would do exactly what you just laid out there. It's a biosensor, which includes monitoring brainwaves, but all other physical parameters, movement, location, and as well as sampling of body fluids and such. And it's tied directly to a cryptocurrency mining software, which essentially is a way to get money in a digital money, right? So basically based directly on your behavior, you would either have money added or subtracted from your account, right? Based on the same kind of surveillance that you're describing. So this is not just talk at this point, but there's actually a patent on the technology to carry this out from a major US corporation.
And they started doing some biometrics with testing with the vaccine in Africa already, and MasterCard and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is behind that one. I think it's important to move on to the next meeting that I learned about, or that I attended. I always had an interest in vaccines to research everything about them. And also it made me suspicious about what was the motivation behind vaccines. So I attended a couple meetings that was of interest, that in 2014, 2015. I'll start with, let's see, Dr. Craig Venter was the Human Genome Project. He was giving a speech at the World Congress meeting in Las Vegas, I think around 2014. And he was bringing up the idea of how we can modify people's genomes and how vaccines would be very useful in doing that.
Now, this was in the context of, like curing genetic diseases, or was this for another
well,
he was talking about?
No, he actually brought up the idea of the designer babies first, of how we could make a better human, okay? So maybe we wanted to have a baby with blue eyes or a special muscular build or whatever you want, and they could do the designer babies, and it was pretty easy to do. And they found more simplified ways of doing this. But what if we could extrapolate this to whole populations of people? That's what he was bringing up. And he was saying that, of course, when you start manipulating the genome and you put something that is not from nature, you're making a synthetic part of the genome there. And he felt that since they were working so hard on their research and development, all these scientists and these companies, they should get credit for their work. So he's the one that brought up the idea of patenting and owning part of the genome, which this was horrifying for me to hear that we could even think about doing this on a human being. And he's the one, this is how I understood that with our highest court, that it was okay at the moment to still patent a part of a genome and own it. So he also said he had a vested interest in that, and that he had some lobbyists in the courts and with politics so that this would continue. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the motivations behind people. Is this really in the best interest of humanity and for the health of everybody? And he also mentioned that since they were modifying the genome of organisms, they would put their names, because a genome can be read as a language, and you can convert that into a binary code as well. And so he said when they were modifying the genome, they would put their signature, their names, the scientists, into the genome, which this was horrifying for me to hear, because this is branding people and plants and animals. And I just this is wrong on every level.
It almost places them in the role of creator or God, right? They're saying that they're putting their signature on their creation of this person. It's really perverse.
And that's exactly what he said. He said, what is God? God creates. Well, we can create now. And those were his exact words to the audience. So I bring that up because one thing is that it shows you the motivation behind some of the people that are they're developing these technologies and that have influence over different companies and organizations, and with the CDC, the World Health Organization. So he also brought up how the smartphone could be involved too. He didn't put all the pieces together, but he did say that one day in the future that we could download our own vaccines from the phone. And I never knew, that was beyond my comprehension at the time. I didn't understand how that was possible, but he kind of left us with that.
Right. So what's your sense of, like, what do you have a sense of which technology is most likely to be utilized, or exactly how this might play out? I know you've looked at DARPA research and other sources like that.
Well, I think when you're talking about a chip or, something physical that you can see, that's outdated. If you talk about, I'm from Dearborn, Michigan, so we believe in Henry Ford. It's a Model T of technology. If you're looking at nanotechnology, it's just outdated. Nobody would really do that. The current idea is to use the nanotechnology, and the best mode of application would be hydrogel, because once it goes subcutaneously, your body won't reject it. And that's important, because almost any other foreign object, you have the chance of getting rejected. But the hydrogel is perfectly in tune and alignment with our own body structures. It won't reject it, and it's very easily applied. You can have millions of these little nanobots inside of you with just a little tiny amount of an injection, and they could be there lifelong.
So you think that nanobots would be basically in the hydrogel medium?
Yes, and that's what they're proposing if you look at the research.
So let me just
and they use different words for hydrogel.
Okay, that's important to know. So let me just explain to everyone basically what hydrogel is that it's a synthetic biopolymer. So it's not made of the same substance as our tissue, but that it's basically compatible with our tissue and actually forms the exact shape to sort of fit into our tissues in such a way that it maintains permanent residence there, and then can interface, and I think it even can develop its own blood supply. Tell me if I'm correct, so basically blood vessels would grow into the hydrogel as if it were new tissue, and then they'd be able to sample from those blood cells with various technologies that could measure things and perhaps even put things in there, right?
Yes, and it goes throughout the entire body, and it has innumerable things it can do. It can assemble and disassemble and reassemble maybe forever in your body. We don't know all the data on that, but it's very possible. So, and also there's research to suggest that it can actually grow more of itself as well.
Really, like self-replicating, like
Yes.
Like prions.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
the raw materials, I guess, would be available in our bodies already from nutrients or other
exactly.
biomolecules.
So this would be the perfect way to hook up to any, the Internet of Everything or any smart device. You don't need a smartphone then. You could automatically just hook up
Right.
directly
So
to
you could
the
have
cloud.
essentially a nano antenna and receiver and transmitter, right? That could be embedded in the hydrogel that could receive various types of Wi-Fi or
Yes,
electromagnetic signals and process information and then transmit information, right? So you could have
exactly.
direct connection with the cloud, so to speak, from your body.
And this goes back to what Craig Venter was talking about, that we could download our vaccines. Now, this gets a little sci-fi, but everything is a code, essentially, when you break it down.
Right.
So what he was saying, with the hydrogel, you could actually put a code, a signal, it could be sound or light signal into where the hydrogel is, and then your body would make that substance. So it could make the vaccine, it could make the drug. This is frightening because who's in control of that, and when and where you get it and what are you getting?
Right. So in other words, like our biology could be programmable remotely and our
Absolutely.
physiology could be changed. Like it could create a mutation that could afflict us with an illness. It could affect our fertility, right? It could affect healing, like virtually any biological process.
Absolutely. And this is the technology they were talking about in both the business and the scientific meeting that I went to. And this is why I'm trying to get the word out to as many people as
Right.
possible to warn them, because whether or not you believe it could work, they believe it can.